We've been lied to about what it means to be successful in love. Somewhere along the way, we absorbed a dangerous idea that love is proven by endurance. We were taught that staying is strength, that fighting for someone no matter the cost to our own mental health is noble. We grew up watching movies where the hero chases someone through an airport, ignores 1,000 no's, and eventually wins. But we weren't taught what happens after the credits roll. We weren't taught that winning someone shouldn't mean losing yourself. We learned to measure our worth by who chose us, by who stayed, by who texted back, and more painfully, by who didn't. We were conditioned to believe that being alone meant something was fundamentally broken within us. But what if the real lie isn't about love at all? What if the real lie is about power? True power isn't holding on to someone who drains your soul. It isn't shrinking your personality, your dreams, or your voice just to fit inside someone else's comfort zone. It isn't tolerating disrespect because you're terrified of the silence that follows a goodbye. True power is standing tall in your own solitude, and that terrifies us. Not because solitude is inherently painful, but because we've never been taught how to see it as sacred. We think being chosen is the prize. But what if choosing yourself is the only victory that actually lasts? Think about the relationships we cling to, the ones that slowly erode us like water hitting a stone. We don't stay because they nourish us. We don't stay because they expand our horizons. We stay because they prevent us from feeling that empty space. We tolerate emotional breadcrumbs. We excuse inconsistency. We romanticize potential in people who have shown us exactly who they are. We confuse chaos for passion. Every time you stay in a space where you aren't valued, you send yourself a devastating message. I would rather have half of someone else than all of myself. That is the quiet tragedy. Loneliness is uncomfortable, yes, but losing your identity is catastrophic. There's a massive difference between being alone and being abandoned. When someone leaves, it feels like rejection. It feels like a verdict that you weren't enough. But staying in something that diminishes you, that is self-abandonment. And the cost of self-abandonment is far higher than the cost of a quiet Friday night. We chase the ring, the shared name, the commitment. But nobody talks about the raw courage it takes to walk away from something that almost works. Nobody throws a party for the person who chooses peace over chemistry. Why? Because peace is quiet. Drama is loud. We confuse intensity with intimacy. We confuse not wanting to be alone with being in love. But hear this, love that requires you to silence your needs is not love. Love that makes you question your worth is not love. It is fear wearing a romantic costume. The most radical thing you can do in a world obsessed with coupling is to be okay on your own, to wake up in a quiet room and not feel incomplete, to build a life that feels full even when no one is watching. That is when your standards rise. That's when you stop begging for clarity and start providing it for yourself. Loneliness is not a verdict, it's a bridge. On one side is dependence, the belief that you are a puzzle missing a piece. On the other side is self-worth, the realization that you were always the whole picture. Most people build homes in the middle of that bridge. They compromise who they are to avoid walking the rest of the way alone. But you are meant to cross it. There will be moments where the silence is deafening. There will be nights you reach for your phone to text the person who never showed up for you. In those moments, remember, growth rarely feels glamorous. Healing rarely feels heroic. Sometimes it just feels like sitting with your thoughts and realizing you're still okay. Every time you choose not to go back to what broke you, you reinforce a new truth. I trust myself more than I fear my own company. You were never asking for too much. You were just asking the wrong person. You were never unlovable. You were just settling for crumbs because you didn't know you owned the bakery. Success in love is not about who stays. It's about who you become. Stand in your own company. Look at your life and say it until you believe it. I am enough, not because someone chose me, but because I choose myself. Now, you aren't looking for love to save you. You're ready for love to meet you. But let's be honest about the morning after you choose yourself. We talk about the victory of walking away, but we don't talk about the grief that follows it. Choosing yourself doesn't always feel like a sunset at the end of a movie. Sometimes it feels like sitting on the floor of a quiet kitchen, wondering if you made a mistake. It feels like the ghost of a notification that never comes. This is the part they don't tell you. The withdrawal from a toxic cycle is physiologically real. Your brain is addicted to the highs and lows. The chaos is passion you've lived in for so long. When you finally choose peace, it feels boring. It feels heavy. It feels like a void. But that void, that is the fertile soil. We have been taught that a full life is a crowded one. We think a full calendar, a shared bed, and a constant stream of "I'm thinking of you" texts are the markers of a successful existence. But look closer at the architecture of your own soul. What hobbies did you bury because they didn't interest your partner? What opinions did you soften so you wouldn't start an argument? What parts of your personality went into the basement because they were too much for someone who was too little? Reclaiming yourself isn't just about being alone. It's about repopulating your own life. It's about taking those parts out of the basement, dusting them off, and realizing they were the most beautiful things you owned. When you stop settling for crumbs, you start to realize that you aren't just the owner of the bakery. You are the architect of the entire street. You begin to realize that loneliness is just a word we use for the space that has been cleared for something better. If you never clear the table of the old, rotting food, there is no room for the feast. By staying in a relationship that drains you, you are essentially telling the universe, "Don't send me anything better. I'm occupied. I'm busy managing this wreck." Walking away is a prayer for something real. It is a declaration that you believe in a version of love that doesn't require a sacrifice of the self. So, what does it look like when you finally cross that bridge? It looks like discernment. It looks like meeting someone new and not asking, "Do they like me?" but rather, "Do I even like how I feel when I'm around them?" It looks like the ability to say no without an explanation because your peace is no longer up for negotiation. You are no longer a hunter searching for a missing piece. You are a kingdom, and you are simply deciding who is worthy of entering the gates. Success in love is not a duration. It's not a 50th anniversary. It is not a measurement of how much pain you can endure before you break. Success in love is the ability to look in the mirror and realize that the person staring back at you is the one you've been waiting for all along. You are the hero of the story. You are the one who stays. You are the one who chooses you. And for the first time in your life, you aren't waiting for the credits to roll. You're finally watching the movie.